Good morning, Science 10s. So today we are talking about physical and chemical changes, the model of the atom, and the periodic table. So you should have your notes guide posted on Google Classroom, or maybe you picked it up from school. Anyways, this one is talking about physical and chemical changes. And this one's pretty straightforward. I mean, physical changes, there's no new substances being produced. They can be reversible, these changes. And you already know these three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. And basically, these are phase changes or state changes. So if a liquid, like liquid water, becomes a solid, we call that freezing, right? That's how you make ice cubes. If the solid, like solid ice cubes, put them in your drink and you leave it and you come back to it a little bit later, it's a liquid, well, that's melting. So those are physical changes. Chemical changes are different because you're forming new substances, and so you're going to have different properties than what you started with. So maybe a new color has formed, an odor, a smell has been given off, gas bubbles got created, light is given off, or heat energy given off. So those are examples of a chemical reaction. Now here's one that you maybe have never heard of before, and here we see that this is a colorless solution in a test tube. And here's another colorless solution in a test tube. When you mix them together, look what happened. Well, you got this bright yellow solid. Look at all the little chunks of solid that are forming here at the bottom of this test tube. And this is what we call a precipitate. So we are taking two colorless liquids and we get a cloudy, it doesn't always have to be yellow, it could be white or look like milk or something, but this cloudy precipitate is forming. And that's an important thing that lets you know that that is a chemical change that has happened. So you can keep reading in this booklet, and you've got a couple of questions to do, number 1 and number 2, pretty straightforward. And then it talks a little bit about the atom and the subatomic particles. So protons are positive, they're found inside the nucleus. Neutrons are in the nucleus, but they have no charge. Electrons are outside of the nucleus, they're orbiting outside, and they have a negative charge. And then you can read about the atomic theory. Everything's made of atoms. Atoms are different from one another. You can't destroy or create atoms, and atoms can combine to make molecules. Okay, and then read this little chart that shows the different properties of protons, neutrons, and electrons. When you're done that, you're going to start looking at this notes guide on the periodic table. And the periodic table basically has a divider down the side. You can kind of see here that there's this really dark line, and they call that the staircase. And every atom to the left of the staircase, those are all of our metals. Every atom that is found, every element on the periodic table to the right of the staircase, well, these guys are all the non-metals. Well, then what about those guys on the staircase? Well, they're special. They have properties of both metals and non-metals. And these guys who are on the staircase are called metalloids. Kind of a little bit like metals, a little bit like non-metals. And you can read the different properties of metals and non-metals and fill out the questions in this notes guide. Another really important concept is that of groups or families. And groups are what we say an up and down, a vertical. So this guy here, this is group 1. Everybody on the periodic table, hydrogen, lithium, sodium, those guys all belong to group 1. And all these guys, group 2, beryllium, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so up and down the vertical columns are the groups. On the other hand, when you're looking side to side this way, that is what we call horizontal. Those guys are called periods. Okay, and so you see in our first period, there's only 2 atoms. There's hydrogen and there is helium. Group 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in that particular period. Sorry, period 2, not group 2. Sideways, horizontal is periods. Up and down vertical is groups. So you guys can go ahead, work on these questions. If you have questions,